Cross the Brazos and Waco, ride hard and I'll make it by dawn.
Welcome to the Waco History Podcast. I'm Randy Lane, great-grandson of Waco architect Roy E. Lane. Over 100 years ago, he designed the Alico Building, Hippodrome, and other well-known landmarks. My co-host, Dr. Stephen Sloan of Baylor's Oral History Institute, is helping me learn Waco's known and unknown stories. On this episode, Haunted Waco, Part 2.
Creepy voices. There was one that told a keeper to get out and the whole building shook.
On Episode 5, Brad Turner laid the groundwork by telling us some of Waco's most well-known supernatural stories. On this episode, Paranormal Investigator Cindy Little tells us about searching for ghosts in Waco.
Crucifixes over the doors that kept falling off, and lots of poltergeist activity. Things would be moving around and then the blinds would be flying up. They had like small fires that would start in their walls.
Join us again on a trip into Waco's haunted past.
All right, Randy. Well, this is a first, so you brought the talent this time.
That's right. I did more work than usual.
Yeah, you booked the expert this time. So we're back here with a Waco History Podcast. But Randy, who do we have with us today?
We have Cindy Little here. I found her actually when we were recording the last podcast with Bradley T. Turner about Haunted Waco. So that's actually 2 podcasts ago. He mentioned you. And so I looked you up online and we communicated. What was interesting about Brad was he was like, I love telling these stories, but I don't want to be the person to go find out if they're true or not. And you're the opposite, right?
I am. Well, I like both. I like the stories, but then I like to snoop around and investigate. That's fun.
First, kind of starting with your introduction, who are you and how did you get into this ghost hunting type of thing?
Okay, I'm Cindy Little. I got into this about 10 years ago. I've always had an interest in it. I started reading ghost stories when I was a kid, and especially this one that really caught me. It was about Jeff the talking mongoose. Okay. I was like 9.
Oh, that old story.
Yeah, that old story. Anyway, there was this cottage somewhere in England, in rural England, and these people claimed that they had a mongoose that talked to them that lived in their walls.
Okay.
And so that was it. That caught me. And so, like I said, I was 9, and you can still look up stories on Jeff the Talking Mongoose. The cottage isn't there anymore, and they still speculate on whether it was a poltergeist or they were just making it up or whatever. But I've always been interested in spooky stories. And then fast forward to the ghost hunter shows that came out.
Those were so popular a bit ago, huh?
Yeah. And so I started watching those and seeing the tech that they used and kind of how they did things, and I thought, I could do that. And so long story short, it's been a little over 10 years now, I just started investigating places here in Waco.
So what brought you to Waco originally?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I got accepted into Baylor's EdPsych PhD program, and they were giving me a full scholarship and a stipend and all this. And so I was basically getting paid to go to school. And I thought, all right.
That's very nice.
That's very nice. And then, of course, my husband's like, yeah, what am I going to do? A really great job opened up for him at Brazos Electric, and he is their IT director. He's still there. He directs their IT department. So everything just really came together well, and came down here, and I went to school and he went to work, and we just love it here in Waco. We've been here about 16 years now, and we just really love it here.
Okay, so you're interested in ghosts, you're watching these ghost shows, and you see all this stuff. When is the first time you said, okay, I'm going to go try to do this?
I heard a rumor about a haunted couch at the consignment store.
I think I bought that couch.
I live over in Woodway. The consignment store, it's the one on Bosque and Highway 6. The haunted couch is still there if you care to visit.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes,
is it a sectional or is it a...
Oh, it's an old granny couch.
Old granny couch.
It's
not a pull-out.
No. Nothing fancy. Just some old granny couch with like a little flowered pattern on it. Looks like something you'd see in your grandma's house. So I heard a rumor about this, and I thought, well, what the heck? I'm going to go down there and I'm going to check out this haunted couch. So I went down there and I asked the cashier about it and said, I understand you have a haunted couch. Where's your haunted couch? Can I look at it? And they're like, oh my gosh, yes, come look at it, and you can come investigate it. And they got the local TV station in there and oh my God. And I'm just like, well, I didn't want this. But, and so I set some cameras up and an audio recorder, and then the TV people came out, and then, oh, do you think the couch is haunted? And it's like, well, I really didn't get any definite readings. Weird things happen around the couch, like my phone went dead, and people's watches kind of go dead or do weird things. And it was near their front counter, and so they had to move the couch because their cashiering system kept crashing, and
wow.
So it was kind of weird, and then some other people came in, some other ghost hunter people later, this is like years later, and they took the cushions off, something I didn't think to do. And
so everyone does with haunted couches. You got to
you got to take the cushions off. And they claimed, I don't know this for certain, but they claimed that there was like some spots that look kind of like blood and some holes that look like bullet holes, and so it's there's a lot of lore building up around the couch, and so that was my first case.
So where did the couch come from?
We don't know.
It just appeared one day.
It appeared one day. Well, and yeah, they could not tell me where the couch came from. Somebody came in and consigned it, and then some people purchased it, took it home, and their house started smelling like sulfur, and their cupboards started flying open, and their drawers started flying open, and they took the couch back to the store. And they said, "No, we don't want the couch."
And so how long has it been in that store?
That was probably, about 11 years ago.
Okay.
And so, yeah, people have offered to buy it for like $2,000-$3,000. And last I heard, they don't want to sell it. I check in every once in a while just to see how the couch is behaving. And they said, oh, it's doing all right. It hasn't misbehaved in a while.
Wow. Okay, we got to get a picture of the couch.
That's great.
For the
Yeah.
podcast page.
That'd
You
be awesome.
do.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
The consignment furniture store on Bosque and Highway 6. It's in that shopping center, and they'll be happy to direct you to the haunted couch.
Do you still have the video that you did back in the day?
I don't have any of my investigation video because I just didn't get anything. It was just a whole night of a couch.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I don't get anything, I just erase it. But yeah, there is I don't know if it's it might be on my webpage. It might be on my Facebook page, the TV interview.
Okay.
With the couch.
You started talking about this a little bit, but what are the tools of the trade? What do you use for these investigations?
Oh, the gadgets?
Yeah, what are your gadgets that you have?
I saw some pictures on your Facebook page.
Oh, yeah. There's a bunch of them. Basically, first and foremost, if anybody tells you that they have a ghost detector, like a ghost detector app on their phone or whatever, that's a bunch of baloney there, because we don't even know what ghosts are. You can't measure something you can't define. No, there's no such thing as a ghost detector. But a lot of what I use and what other ghost hunters use are just things that measure the environment. And since we don't know what a ghost is, we're trying to figure out, okay, if somebody sees an apparition, what is going on in the environment? Is there anything different going on in the environment than normal? And so I use digital audio recorders. I have a surveillance system. I have a full spectrum camera that records ultraviolet to infrared because the thinking goes, well, maybe there might be something in some of these other spectrums.
More than the eye can see.
More than the eye can see. I've got regular cameras. I have an EMF reader. That's an electromagnetic field reader.
Okay.
That measures, electromagnetic spikes in an environment. And so I use that a lot to rule things out. It's like, oh, if I were to come in here, I would use my EMF meter and I would go all around and I would be able to rule out all of your computers and all of this equipment because it would make it spike.
Okay.
And the reason for doing that is because sometimes when paranormal things happen, you will get EMF spikes. And so at least I try to go in and try to eliminate as much as possible in the natural environment. And if you have an environment where there's just a naturally high electromagnetic field, it can make people sick. And so it can make them dizzy and feeling like they're being watched, and even can make some people hallucinate. And so if I'm able to go in there and find something like that, I can tell the people, hey, you might want to get your electrical system checked, or, because this could be what's making you feel kind of wonky. Let's see, what else do I use? I have temperature readers, like a surface temperature reader and an ambient, because a lot of times there will be dramatic temperature fluctuations. There'll be like what they're called cold spots. And so people will experience those, and we try to measure those. I've got an all-in-one meter. It's an EDI meter. I love that thing. You just plug a little SD card in the top, and it will record and put it in this nice little table you can open up in your computer. It records, let's see, air pressure, temperature, vibration, electromagnetic fields. So it's kind of this all-in-one thing that I can just set off to the side and go out and do other things.
It's all very scientific, it sounds like.
Kinda. I mean, it's just very techy. It's just a lot of technology.
The one that I saw on your Facebook page that made me kind of laugh was the Xbox Kinect.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. The Kinect. Yeah, that's a new one. And those, of course, were originally for Xbox, and they came out shortly after the Wii, the big Wii craze, and, you're moving your body around to play the video game. Well, that was Xbox's shot at it, and it just never took off. Later on, the ghost hunters discovered it, and basically what is going on is that you can set up your Kinect to a tablet, and it will measure things in the environment, and feed it back to you. It's hard to talk about without seeing it or showing it, but basically people register on the Kinect screen as like a little stick figure. And so you're out there and you can kind of move around, and it'll show a little stick figure over you. Well, what we're finding is that sometimes there will be stick figures that appear when nobody's there. And so I look at that and say, well, that could be a software glitch. That could be something that's just misreading, or it's reading that lamp over there. It looks like a person. Well, those are easy fixes. You can reboot it, you can move the lamp, etc. The interesting ones that I haven't gotten yet, and I'm hoping to get, are the ones that interact with you. And so you'll see the little phantom stick figure, and hey, can you wave at me? And then it'll wave. Or can you raise your right hand? And it'll raise its right hand. Can you reach out and hold my hand? And it'll reach out and hold your hand.
Has that happened to you?
That has not.
Oh,
not yet. I know. I know. But I'm pretty excited about the Kinect. We'll see.
Okay, so we heard from Brad that Waco is a pretty creepy town in the folklore that he's heard of, in the past. Is that the same experience for you as someone who's going to investigate these sort of places? How does Waco rate on the scale of like how creepy of is its history and
really
the ghosts? How active is it?
It should be an easier question to answer than it is.
Do you have an instrument to measure the creepiness?
The creepy factor.
Yeah,
I need to invent one of those. Gee, I love Waco. I mean, I don't get creeped out in these places. I'm just more interested in them. I think the history is really interesting. But there are plenty of places that, you talk to Brad, about all the places here in Waco that are supposedly haunted. Some of them, are completely false. Witch's Castle, I hate to burst your bubble.
No.
110% false.
So you checked it out?
I did. Well, actually, I didn't check it out. A retired surveyor made it really easy for me. There's an article, I want to say it's probably about a year or two old. It's not that old. Went in and just did extensive research on the area and the little house that used to be there. And it just used to be this kind of getaway for this family. And it eventually burned down. There was no creepy lady that was stalking children in the park or anything like that. He also found there was at one time an African-American church with a cemetery in the area and a famous madam that was living in the area, but no ghosts, no witch. I'm sorry.
So when we were talking beforehand, you were saying that, usually around Halloween, you and Brad get trotted out as the people who know about this sort of stuff. And you're probably tired of that. We're past that kind of creepy time of year, so I think maybe that's died down a little bit.
Right.
If you were going to lay out some hot spots around town that you have personally investigated, kind of let's run through some of those and kind of the story behind them and your findings.
Cameron Park.
Cameron Park.
And the Cameron Park Zoo. I'm a volunteer at the zoo, and we have just started doing ghost walks out at the zoo. We did one in October and one in November. Oh, there's story after story after story at the Cameron Park Zoo, especially like in the herpetarium. There's some keepers that won't even go into the herpetarium offices at night because there's glass, and you see the animals through the glass and stuff. There's reflections that will walk behind you in the glass.
Ooh.
There are creepy voices. There was one that told a keeper to get out and the whole building shook. And let's see what else. There's a man in black that will sometimes go into the aquarium and like watch the kids when they're on snoozes, and then he'll go like down to the lemur deck and people have seen him down there. Sometimes there's like a green glowing light that comes on in one of the offices. There's poltergeist activity in the offices. This one guy, one of the workers, has this hat collection, and he has them all hanging up on the side of his cubicle. And so he walked in one morning and his hats were all taken down and like perfectly stacked up. And he looked over the top of his cubicle and could see someone walking across, and he went around to see who it was, and nothing was there.
So what's the thought behind why the zoo would be haunted?
The whole park is haunted. That you will, Brad told you the stories, about Jacob's Ladder and about Circle Point and Lover's Leap, and
he told us Lover's Leap, but not the Jacob's Ladder, I don't believe.
No, he didn't tell us Jacob's Ladder.
Oh, he did. Oh, it's in his book.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in his book.
We only had so much time.
I know. Yeah. I have not formally investigated Circle Point or Jacob's Ladder. I've been out to Lover's Leap plenty, but yeah, Jacob's Ladder is, I guess, since the 1980s, there's been this ghost that grabs women on Jacob's Ladder. And so take it for what it is.
So the zoo is very, very haunted, right?
Yes, it is.
What investigations have you done there?
Well, before the ghost walk, we did an investigation at the herpetarium and the lemur deck and in one of the aquariums. And it was all pretty quiet. The strangest thing we heard in the herpetarium was it sounded like a flute playing. Somebody was playing a phantom flute. And we learned later on that Camp MacArthur's band would practice out there. I don't know if there's a connection or not. And then we've gotten some EVPs, that's electronic voice phenomenon, where you don't hear something with your ears, but if you've got a recorder on, the recorder will pick it up. And we're not exactly sure what's going on there, but they happen a lot. They happen all the time. And so we got, just on the last ghost walk, we got an EVP of a door opening up and somebody coughing, and my camera was trained on the door and the people, and there was no door opening and nobody coughed. So what that was, we don't know. We haven't seen anything real super creepy out at the zoo, but there's plenty of stories.
It seems to be the way it is. People have the stories, but not the evidence to back it up.
Yeah, I want to take you back. So the story on the couch.
Oh, yeah?
Way back.
And it seems like you get on television, so people know you're interested in this and you're doing this. And so I would imagine you begin to get calls.
Yes.
I'm interested in the first one where you're like, wow. So the couch wasn't a wow. In other words, you didn't discover all these things about the couch, but I'm wondering the first one you went out on where you had this experience of really gathering some activity and kind of seeing.
Okay, that actually has been very, very recent.
Okay, good.
Ooh.
Because I have been, like I said, I've been doing this for, over 10 years now. So in August, I went to something called Paranormal University out in Marlin at the Palace Theater and met some of the ghost hunters out there, and I'm working with them now, and we're doing more stuff. They were running this, it was just kind of a ghost hunt and kind of an informational, kind of a teaching time where people were invited in and they were raising money to refurbish the theater. It's a beautiful old theater. So I thought, that sounds fun. I'll go out there and meet these other people and see what's going on and da-da-da. And so we went out there, we had the informational time, and then they have this basement in the theater, and it's dim. It wasn't completely dark, but it was pretty dim. We also, I had my EMF meter, and this was a good lesson to me in I need to look up every once in a while because I got my tech and I'm always, like this. And so I've got my EMF meter and I'm looking around, nothing. One of the ghost hunter people had dowsing rods. They're big into dowsing rods. I'm not. I can explain that or not, whatever. I just am not into.
Well, what is it basically?
Dowsing rods, basically, they use it like a divining device where, they'll start, if they believe a spirit is there, they're going to start asking the spirit questions, saying, is somebody here? Would somebody like to talk to us? Yes or no? These yes or no questions, and the rods will point out or cross, point out or
So it's like a Ouija board. They could be kind of affecting it.
Same type of thing. I just say because of the ideomotor effect where you could unconsciously be moving these things, I'm like, no, it's just too big of a variable to ignore. So anyway, long story short, they're doing a divining rod session. I'm looking at my EMF meter. The divining rod is not picking anything up. My EMF meter is not picking anything up. This guy is over in the corner and he's got a Mel meter, which records the electromagnetic fields and temperature at the same time. And he's looking around. And so I look over there and I see this guy just standing behind him. And so I'm thinking, okay, it's just another guest. He's just about medium build, dark hair, light shirt, dark pants, I thought, okay, he's just another guest. He steps out from behind the guy. And so I'm kind of watching him and he walks towards me and he vanishes.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so I'm just like, oh my gosh. I just saw a ghost. And so I stop everybody. I'm like stopping the divining lady, and I'm like, hey, I just saw this ghost. I just saw a ghost. And they're like, oh, where? Oh my gosh. And so I was telling them about this experience and I just thought it was really cool. They thought it was really cool too. But the one thing that I learned is that sighting, whatever that was that I saw, it didn't register on anything. It didn't register with the lady doing the divining rods. It didn't register on my EMF or the guy's Mel meter. And I mean, it was kind of to me, it was almost felt like a kind of a screw you moment, where it's kind of like
you're trying to measure me.
You're trying to measure me and you won't. And so it wasn't, to me, it wasn't scary. It was just really cool. I just thought that is really neat to watch somebody just step out from behind another guy and just vanish into thin air. So yeah, that was my favorite moment.
Was there any story behind, like, was there a man that was in that room at one point and died or used to roam the halls or something?
Not that I have found yet. I haven't had a chance to do a lot of historical research on the Palace Theater, but I mean, he looked thoroughly modern. I mean, he didn't look like some old timey top hat and tails type guy. I mean, he looked like another guest. And had he not just stepped out and vanished, I would have thought he was just some other guy that was there.
Interesting.
It was cool.
So what other places around have you been able to investigate?
Let's see. I've investigated the Waco Civic Theater. That was a lot of fun. I didn't do an overnight investigation there, but I did set up equipment, and I thought it was interesting because I got a lot of people noises in the theater all night long. Footsteps, people sitting in chairs and getting up, just kind of these sounds of people in the theater. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And there's been a sighting of Bob Schmidt, who was really active in the theater there in the 70s and 80s, especially, that people see his ghost in the audience from time to time.
But no evidence of that?
I did not capture any evidence of that, no. And I've investigated the zoo, the Palace Theater in Marlin. We've done a couple of investigations there now, and these are the most recent ones. And we have just been given access to the Falls Hotel, which is also in Marlin. And I mean, it's amazing. I'd say that place is creepy. That's a creepy place.
Yeah, it is a creepy place.
But I mean, so, and that's just very recent. And we just have gotten in for the first time and just kind of did an exploratory look around and didn't really get anything, but it's just so huge. I've also heard, I haven't followed up on this yet, but I've also heard that some of the historic houses in town have experienced some paranormal activity, but they don't like to advertise that. I take my class. I have a class in the fall at MCC on paranormal investigating. I take them to the Dr. Pepper Museum for a field trip ghost hunt every class session. So that's a lot of fun. So we've been in the Dr. Pepper Museum a lot as well.
So what are some of the sightings at the Dr. Pepper Museum?
At the Dr. Pepper Museum, probably the most recent visual sighting is I had one of my students was sitting up in the theater area. This was on the 3rd floor. She just likes to quietly sit and observe, which I think is great. She said that, and there again, there's lights in there, but it's kind of dim. She said, I was sitting there and I saw a black mass, a black shadow break away from the dark and get up and walk across the front of the theater. So I thought that was really interesting.
Is there any historical significance to the Dr. Pepper Museum that might lend to it?
I mean, I don't know of a death or anything like that that's attached to it that might be. I'm wondering, what's your dream get? I mean, what place would you love to get access to get into and spend a night in and do a series of investigations of?
Well,
maybe we can help you on the Waco History Podcast.
I'm trying to think of. I'm pretty much getting access to everywhere I want. The Alico building would be nice. Mm-hmm. I've heard lots of stories about the Alico building.
Are there some recurring ones about the Alico that?
Yeah, I did talk to a security guard many years ago, and he talked about the ghosts in the basement being polite and opening the doors for him.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So polite ghosts are nice.
It's kind of nice. Mm-hmm. I just can't think of anywhere off the top of my head other than that I really haven't had an opportunity to have access to.
Mm-hmm. Have you been to the Hippodrome?
I have not been to the Hippodrome. The Hippodrome would be a lot of fun, but the other ghost hunting group, McLennan County Paranormal, they investigate the Hippodrome a lot. Mm. Not that there's like territory or anything, but I figure, hey, they're doing a lot of investigating at the Hippodrome, and you don't want to wear out these business owners who are gracious enough to let us kooky people in to do investigations.
So have you noticed either private owners or business owners, their attitudes towards this change even in over the time that you've been doing it, as far as if they're open to it or not?
Some are completely open to it and some are completely closed.
Yeah.
There are a few places I've been to here in Waco, and there's like some that I'm going to be going to that they're like, yes, you can come in, but please don't mention who we are. And I respect that.
Yeah.
I mean,
who are they? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I can't tell you, and so I completely respect that because it tends to be very polarizing. People are either over here going, no. For example, one bar that I was in doing an investigation, they want to remain anonymous. They're downtown. No, it's not Barnett's. Everybody asks me that. Is it Barnett's? No.
Seems like it should be haunted.
I know. I think there's some rumors around Barnett's, but no, this wasn't Barnett's. They were having some weird activity going on in the bar, and they were afraid to go upstairs, and they were, hearing footsteps, and they were seeing black masses floating around, and they were hearing strange noises. And so I went in and did an investigation there. First of all, that was actually kind of an interesting investigation because I was taking readings throughout the night. Right when I was packing up, the guy that was with me, one of the bar employees, he said, hey, can I see your EMF meter for a minute? Can I just walk around and see if we get something, And I'm saying, no, sure, fine, go ahead. And he's like, whoa, was it supposed to be doing this? And so in the middle of the room that I had been taking readings in all evening, it just starts spiking. And the spikes start moving around. It's like spike, 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 dead. And then you'd walk to a different spot and then spike, 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 dead. It's like something was moving around in there. And so he turns around and he goes, oh my gosh, there's a black mass. And so he saw a black mass going out of the door and down the stairways. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And, I don't know if there's like energy that's causing this. There's like theories out there. And so what I told him is I did a little bit of historical research, saw pictures of the building that the bar is in, and it was very close, like within a half a block of the R.T. Dennis Furniture Building that was like 5 stories high, and it pancaked all the floors during the tornado.
Yeah.
And it was
over 100 people died in that building.
It was just this horrible tragedy, and so this bar was very close. And
So where was this again?
Downtown Waco.
Well, yeah, but like where was the building?
The R.T. Dennis building was across the street from the Alico building.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
There's a
right in
marker there behind the Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's in that area. And so I said, I looked back, I didn't see anything strange or murders or whatever, but I did see this. It was very close to this tragedy, and it was just horrible, and there was rubble in the streets and bodies in the streets, and maybe some sort of energy stuck around. I don't know, but it's a possibility.
Do you research before you go out, like who the ghosts may be that you're trying to talk with, so you can be like, "Hey, Frank."
Yeah, how you doing? Yeah. It just depends. I mean, if I have time, I'll research before. If not, a lot of the researching after I do is to validate people's stories or to see if I can lend support to their stories. For example, a before example is we're getting ready to investigate the LaSalle Shops, which is the antique mall out on LaSalle Avenue, and it used to be the Loop Hotel. And so I did some historical research there, and it was a hotel for a while, and then it became homeless housing, and it fell into disrepair pretty quickly. And so I said, if walls could talk, I imagine this building would have some interesting things to say. Afterwards, this was a private resident. I talked to a gal who lived in, now I can never pronounce this right. Is it DeLeon? It's the town.
I think it's DeLeon.
DeLeon. Okay. She lived in an apartment in DeLeon, and she kept being visited by this saloon girl in her dreams, and she would see her walking through the house, and this is kind of gross, but she didn't have a face. She said it was like her face was cut off, and she thinks that's, I know. She thinks that's how she died, is this girl, this ghost saloon girl without a face. So I went to the Carroll Library at Baylor, which I love. I can't say enough good things about them if you want to look up anything historical. And just did a little bit of research on downtown DeLeon in the 1800s, on the streets, the maps, and was able to find out that there were 3 saloons within a couple blocks of where her apartment was. And while, I can't say with any certainty that, there was a saloon girl that was butchered, it was a really rough town in the 1800s. It was a rough railroad town. Is it possible that a saloon girl may have gotten killed in or near your apartment or where your apartment is? Maybe, it's not possible. So, I'll do that just to kind of see if I can figure something out, to see if maybe what they're saying, there might actually be something to it.
Have you had these occasions where you gave the example of the Xbox Connect of kind of waving and I know that's just an example of an interaction. Do you feel like in any of yours you've had those sort of interactions?
I have not. I would love that. You talk about my dream place. That's kind of my dream experience. I mean, that's no matter where I'm at, I would love to be able to see an apparition and interact with that apparition. And that's just so extremely, extremely rare. But I'm still looking, and I mean, that'd be fascinating.
What's the typical way that ghost hunters try to get a apparition to interact with them?
That's a really good question. I mean, some of them will just ask questions. A lot of them use, divining materials like the divining rods or a ghost box. Again, I don't use those, which is basically it's a modified radio that the knob just goes back and forth really fast. So it's almost kind of white noise. And they, believe that enhances communication with an apparition. But there again, I mean, I think, I talk to my students about pareidolia, and our brains like to make sense of randomness.
Yeah.
And I don't use those for a very similar reason that I don't use the divining rods. Is it's like, your brain is going to start making patterns out of these random words that you're getting on the radio. And it's like, oh my goodness, it said Mary, Mary had a lamb. Oh my goodness, and then so it's kind of like, it's just, you have to be careful. So they do that, like I said, in the divining, and a lot of times they'll, I'll do this occasionally, just ask questions, and it's like, is anybody here? Does anybody want to say anything? Does anybody want to talk? Just with an audio recorder or with your phone. That's what I tell people when I come in, when they come into the ghost walks, and just say, use your phone. See if you get anything weird on your phone. Just ask questions. Because, I figure, I don't know that a ghost needs fancy boxes or whatnot to communicate through. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but,
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that earlier. Like, when you go on a ghost walk or with your students, I feel like they're probably already primed to like, oh, I'm going to see something. And in actuality, they're probably not going to see anything. And so do you kind of have that expectation when you go into these situations? Like, I'm open to the experience, but I need to be able to measure it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I mean, I tell people that haven't been on a ghost hunt or on a ghost walk or anything like this, I say, it's a lot more like fishing. You're just going to be sitting there in the dark for a while, and you may get something, you probably won't. And that's how the TV shows, I love watching the TV shows. They're great, and they're so entertaining, but you've got like 9-10 hours worth of stuff all crammed into 1 hour.
Right.
Things are happening every 2 minutes. And so that's what a lot of people's heads are filled with that come on these ghost walks or these ghost hunts. That's what they're expecting. They're expecting to come into something that's more like a haunted house, a fake haunted house, than just going in and being quiet and seeing what you see and hearing what you hear on in an old building. Some people, they go in and they say, wow, this is really awesome. I want to keep doing this. This is so interesting. And other people, 10 minutes and they're out the door. Yeah, they're just like, no, this isn't for me. This is boring. And so, yeah, it just really depends. It's interesting to see different people's reactions when they go into a ghost hunt for the first time.
Have you done investigations of any of the historic cemeteries in town? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Let's see. I haven't really gotten much. Went to First Street, Oakwood. Now, you talk about my dream spot. Okay. Oakwood after hours. I mean, I have tried to get in there after hours, and they're like, no way, no. So that would be really interesting to go out to Oakwood at night.
So where is Oakwood exactly?
It's off of 5th and LaSalle.
Okay.
It's just kind of, you go down LaSalle, and then I think you make a right on 5th off of LaSalle. There's a marker for it. There's a historical marker. You haven't been to Oakwood?
I haven't. And part of the reason for doing this podcast is that I don't really have a lot of history here, and I'm trying to learn about it. So I can be the novice for people that don't know as well.
As soon as he knows everything, we have to stop the podcast.
I know.
Dang. There's a lot to know.
Yeah.
Have you been to Greenwood? Been to Greenwood Cemetery?
Greenwood. That's the one that was just recently desegregated.
That's right.
Correct?
Yeah.
That was wild.
Yeah.
Yes, but not on a ghost
Not an
hunt.
investigation, yeah.
Been out to Patrick Cemetery, and I was out there with a couple of guys, and one of them had a parabolic mic, and one of what we got there was a vibrating headstone. We don't know why the headstone was vibrating, but I thought
That's
was
what
kind of
Brad was talking
interesting.
about, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was talking about he was talking about that.
Yeah, Patrick Cemetery. And I know that there's the rumor of the little girl.
Yeah, he told us that story.
Yeah, and the rumor of the headstones moving around, and the one where you put your car in neutral and it it moves one way or another. In Texas, they have a lot of those rumors, and they have a lot of those stories about the car and the handprints on the back if you put the baby powder on it. And there again, a lot of times it's just an optical illusion. You look like you're going down, but you look like you're going up, but you're really going down.
So going back to the vibrating headstone, what does that look like exactly? Like, can you feel it? Like, could you hold on to it and you could feel the vibrations?
No, it was just the parabolic mic caught it.
Okay. And parabolic mic, for those who don't know, is the one that's like 360 degrees?
Yeah, it's got a big cone on it.
Oh, no. So it's the more exact, like, pinpoint type of thing. Like NFL games, they have the thing on the sideline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But there again, and it's a really nice little cemetery, and it was real peaceful. Nothing real crazy happened when we were out there.
Have you ever heard of Cindy? Has someone ever said Cindy or get out of here? Or
No.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're, as you hear things or interact with things, I was always had a preference for Casper over other sorts of ghosts. So, I mean, as far as a benevolent sort of presence, or, have you had experiences of both kind of situations where you felt it was more of a malevolent sort of presence and one that was more of a benevolent?
I have not felt anything malevolent.
Okay.
I cannot think of one instance where I have felt anything malevolent. Even going into a private residence, I've done some investigations in private residences where they had crucifixes over the doors that kept falling off, and lots of poltergeist activity. Things would be moving around, and then the blinds would be flying up. They had like small fires that would start in their walls. It was crazy. And a black...
That's here locally?
Yes, that's here locally.
Oh,
a man
okay.
in black that would come and walk down their hallway when the husband and wife were watching TV at night. And so, and I mean, when I went in there with a team, I didn't experience anything like that, but one of the ghost hunters had her hair pulled. But even there, I didn't feel like, oh my gosh, this is evil. This is so malevolent. Maybe I've just gotten lucky. I really haven't felt anything evil or malevolent, but I'm also, I've taken classes in parapsychology through the Rhine, which used to be the Duke University Parapsychology Lab. It's fascinating because people are wired up to experience these things differently.
Yeah.
And there have been I'm not going to go into detail on this, but there have been scientific laboratory tests done in universities like Duke, Princeton, Stanford about, parapsychological abilities like clairvoyance, telepathy, psychokinesis, and these things have been shown in labs, in laboratory tests. So all to say is that people who tend to be a little more over here on this side of where they're a little more telepathic or precognitive or retrocognitive, where they can read an old building and get a sense of what was happening there.
I've never heard that term before. Retrocognitive?
Retrocognition, yes.
Interesting.
And a lot of times, you'll get people that are ghost hunters they call themselves sensitives, and they can go in and they can read the building. It's called psychometry, and they'll be able to sense the people. Like when we were at the falls there, we had a sensitive, and she was in the ballroom, and she says, I don't sense anything bad here. I just sense people out on the floor dancing. There are some people that are way over here that can go into these buildings and they can read these buildings, and they, have more experiences than people like me, who I'm like way over here, and I don't tend to be real sensitive that way. I don't have those types of experiences very often. So it's always nice to pair up with people like that and to kind of get a variety of people that are kind of on that, I don't know, psi spectrum, that psychic spectrum.
You're like the scientific constant, and they're like the, the variable, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So it's real interesting stuff.
So you offer a class in this.
I
so
do.
People can take this class.
I do.
Very interesting. That sounds like something I want to do.
Well, you're more than welcome.
Makes my classes sound really boring.
Oh, no.
I just can't imagine that you've never been scared.
I know. I haven't, though. Not yet.
At 3 a.m., when you're in the dark at 3 a.m., are you usually by yourself on these?
No.
Okay, you don't go by yourself. You never go by yourself.
Never go alone.
Okay.
Well, why is that? That sounds like it's more fun, more of a dare type of thing.
Here's the deal. A lot of times you're in a building that's dark and it's old and it's rickety and it's very easy to get hurt. And sometimes you have living individuals that are in the building that, you may not want to run into. Sometimes there'll be, people using drugs or,
Okay.
it's not smart because of physical danger. You just don't want to go in there by yourself. You could fall down and hurt yourself, or there could be somebody there that might want to cause you harm. So no, never go alone. Never go alone.
But I'm just thinking at 3 a.m. in the dark, you're trying to be quiet. You have your instruments there, but you're sitting there and you imagine shapes on the... you sound like you're working to keep to your instruments and what they're showing you, but you also you have an imaginative mind, and we start to see shapes that take human form, and our mind starts to play tricks on us a little bit. I'm just amazed that you've never been scared. I'm kind of scared, and I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just fascinating to me. Maybe it's because, I've been in place after place after place, and I've heard story after story after story where nobody gets hurt, nobody gets threatened. Some people might get spooked. I think of the zookeeper at the herp offices, where it's like, get out. That'd be spooky. I'd be spooked if I heard something like that. But no harm came to him. I don't know why. It's just something that I find really, really interesting. And as of yet, and I hope it continues this way, I just have not experienced anything that's just been like, oh my goodness, this is too scary. I can't do this anymore.
Okay, so something interesting that Brad was saying, he was like, I don't understand why ghosts are so OCD. Like, they do the same thing every night. Is this something that you've also witnessed in your experience? Do ghosts do the same things? Like if someone says, oh yeah, every night at 4, he moves the chair over to this side of the room.
That'd be really awesome if that happened. I wish it was that easy. I hear that all the time. And I hear with the phantom footsteps are another one that, they will hear the footsteps at certain times. Yeah, there's a theory about that. It's called place memory. And this is, like I said, this is all super theoretical, is that somehow the place records something in time. It records an event, or it can be a sound, a smell, someone walking. When the environment is favorable, it'll replay.
So it's like interdimensional, not necessarily spiritual?
It's basically, yeah, I don't know. That's a good, now you're getting way up there. Basically, it's the way I describe it, it's like recording something on your DVR. It's more like a somehow the environment has recorded something. Battlefields, in Gettysburg, this happens a lot where, the people will hear cannon shot. They will hear soldiers screaming and crying. They will, basically hear a battle. Not every day all the time, or not every day at 3 p.m. That'd be really nice. But just randomly. And if we could figure out how to turn on the recorder, that would go a long way.
Yeah.
But that happens a lot. Phantom smells, a lot of times like a certain perfume or cigar. And like I said, a lot of them's the footsteps, the phantom footsteps. So yeah, that's really common. I remember Brad talking about that in the OCD ghosts, and I'm thinking, those are place memory, Brad. Yeah.
Also, I feel like the collective culture tries to say that ghosts have a mission, like they were left behind because of some trauma, or they didn't quite make it to heaven or something like that. Is that often accompany these investigations you go on, like a story? Sometimes
the psychics will offer a story, and sometimes the residents, a lot of times in the private residents, they will offer a story. And I can understand why they offer it, because they can say, it's grandma, they recognize the ghost. It's grandma. She is walking out to the garden every day. She loves to garden. And we think she's just sticking around because she wants to be near us and protect us, and she loved us. And it's always real positive. But the stories I take with a grain of salt, unless I can verify them historically, because there are some psychics that are the real deal. They're real genuine and are real accurate, but there are a lot of them that I think they're more accurate than they are. No offense to my psychic and sensitive friends, but I think you just have to be careful, and you have to be willing to verify. As for ghosts with a mission, honestly, that's kind of, to me, it's getting the cart before the horse. I'm not even sure what a ghost is yet. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's like,
you've been doing it for a decade and you still don't know.
And I don't know. It's weird. All I say is there's a lot of weird stuff going on. I've experienced it. I've talked to lots of other people that have experienced it. So there's something going on, and just trying to figure out what that is.
Brad shared some stories of the Goat Men and the Cameron Park Witch, and the Lindsay brothers and Lindsay Hollow. I wonder if there's stories that are prominent of ghosts, particular ghosts, that might be worth chasing, that are supposedly that are supposed, because Brad's not going to chase them. So
no, he's not.
Yeah, that you hear stories of in Waco, and these can be attached to. You mentioned earlier with the Civic Theater, these can be attached to historic people that lived in town, or if there's other stories that you hear regularly.
I think it's worth, snooping around Cameron Park and seeing if you can verify some of those stories. Looking around Oakwood Cemetery, one of the ghosts that's rumored to be hanging out there is W.C. Brand. He was a newspaperman in the early Waco history, and he had a real acerbic tongue. It had a grand, spectacular way of dying. I won't go into that, but anyway,
I'm kind of interested.
It's an episode. He was gunned down. We got an episode.
All right,
we'll do that in another episode.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
It's a great story. But there's a rumor that he haunts the cemetery, and you might be able to see his gravestone is by a tree near the front, and you might be able to see him at times kind of leaning on his tree with a smirk on his face, So that's worth looking at. Lindsay Hollow Road, I definitely think is worth looking at. It's a beautiful, beautiful tree-lined road, but if you're going to go out there, you need to be careful. If you're walking around, you don't want to get hit by a car. But apparently, a lot of the houses that are along the road report a lot of paranormal activity. And of course, Brad talked about, I'm sure, the story about the Lindsay brothers and hearing the boot spurs, the jangle of the boot spurs. People still hear that. And so there's some strange stuff that goes on Lindsay Hollow Road. And
have you tried that?
I have not investigated Lindsay Hollow Road. I just haven't found a good spot to stop and look around. But I keep hearing stories. It's a good one.
I think we've answered the question, who are you going to call?
No proton packs or anything?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
No containment services?
It was hilarious. Our ghost walk at the zoo, one of our guests came dressed as a ghost hunter. It was hilarious. Oh, I loved it. I was like, that is awesome. She had the proton pack and the jumpsuit, the whole deal. And she was ready to go.
This is really interesting. Yeah. So as you, and I'm really interested with the Falls Hotel as you spend some time over there.
I can hardly wait to have more time at the Falls Hotel. Yeah. Like I said, it was just so massive. And you've got 9 floors and you've got a small group of people. And that's good. You don't want too many people because then it gets noisy. You're all trying to record things and you end up recording each other instead of anything aberrant. But it's a really creepy, cool old place.
One of the first Hilton hotels.
Yeah, and I'm real interested. And I don't know if we haven't been able to get in. I haven't been able to get into them yet, but there was a big boon in Marlin because a mineral spring was discovered there, and so this healing waters of the spring of Marlin. There's a tunnel that goes from the Falls Hotel where the swanky people would stay underneath to the spring so they could privately go to the springs, so nobody would see them. And so I really would love to get down into those tunnels if those are accessible.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Excellent. Well, if people want to find you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you online, stuff like that?
Online, yeah. I would say Waco Ghosts, all one word, wacoghosts.com. That's my website. And I'm on Facebook. It's just Facebook/Waco Ghosts, all one word. And I'm always checking things regularly, and, just message me or go through my website and you'll be able to get in touch with me.
And tell people about the class you teach, because that's really interesting. I think people might want to take that.
Oh, yeah. We just wrapped up. I usually teach a class. They're at MCC, Continuing Education. I usually teach a class in the fall and the spring. This spring, I am not going to be teaching one. I've got some personal things that are precluding that. But I hope to teach again in the fall. It's Paranormal Investigation. It's a 6-week class. We go through, pretty much all that I've talked about here. You go through history, theories, tech, how to go on a ghost hunt, haunted places, and then we usually do a couple of field trips. And I always take my classes to the Dr. Pepper Museum, which is always a lot of fun. I'll probably be taking them to the Dr. Pepper Museum and the zoo in the future. The one in the spring usually has even more field trips than that. It's a little more field trip heavy and a little less we're going to sit and listen to a lecture. And a lot of people like that better.
And if anybody who has access to your favorite spots you want to go is listening to this podcast, please let her in, because we want to hear all the stories.
Yay! Yes, right. Please. Please let me in.
All right, Cindy, thank you so much for coming on. I've learned a lot,
Cindy.
and it was really fun.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Cross the Brazos and Waco, ride hard and I'll make it by dawn. Cross the Brazos and Waco.
Thanks for listening to the Waco History Podcast. Like what you heard? Subscribe, rate, and review our show on iTunes so we can reach more listeners. You can find show notes and info on every episode at wacohistorypodcast.com and more info on Waco's past at wacohistory.org. Our theme music, used with permission, is Cross the Brazos at Waco, performed by the late Billy Walker. For more info on Billy's music, go to billywalker.com. We'll see you next time.
Time ago, as he dropped the guns that she hated in the muddy Brazos below. Cross the Brazos at Waco, ride hard and I'll make it by dawn. Cross the Brazos at Waco, I'll walk straight in old San Antone. Then the night came alive with gunfire. He knew that at last it'd been found. As the ranger's badge showed brightly, El Bandito lay on the ground. Carmela knew he was dying, that all of her dreams were in vain. As she kissed his lips for the last time, she heard him whisper again. Cross the Brazos and Waco, ride hard and I'll make it by dawn. Cross the Brazos and Waco, I'm safe when I reach San Antone. I'm safe when I reach San Antone.